All right, here we go.
You hear the sound okay?
I think so.
Okay.
We'll know tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. The idea here is you joined the army in the mid 50s and served 20 something years.
22.
22 years in the army. And there are not a lot of people left that joined up at the same time you did and are still around to tell about it, right?
Yeah, if you did it the legal way and you went in at 17, you'd be 88, around 88 years old today. If you'd waited a little longer, you'd be in your 90s.
Okay.
And a lot of the people that went into the service were drafted because there's still a draft. So most of the guys that about 60% of the people I served with initially in the military were drafted. And they were in their mid 20s. So those guys would all be in their 90s today.
Yeah, if they're still
If
around,
they're still
right?
alive, right?
Yeah. So before we jump into it, just give us like 5 minutes on. Well, first, what's your name?
Jim Boyle.
All right. And I'm gonna call you Dad. Calling
Okay.
you Mr. Boyle, it doesn't seem right. Give us your background. Like when were you born?
Yeah.
Where? And take us up to 1954.
Okay, I was born in McGee Hospital, which is a women's hospital in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, October 5th, 1938. I grew up in a town, I grew up in Pittsburgh, but on the suburbs of Pittsburgh, a place called Swissvale. So I lived in Swissvale. I think when I was 2 or 3 years old, my parents bought a house in Swissvale for $3,000.
Wow.
And I lived there till the 8th grade. My first grade, I went to Catholic school, and after first grade, I went to public school. And I went through the public school through the 7th grade, and my mom and dad got divorced, and I moved to a place called Irving, Texas. Oh, I'm sorry, Irving, Pennsylvania.
All right.
Irwin, Pennsylvania. I got the Irwins.
All right.
I went to Irwin, Pennsylvania.
Is that close to Swissville? Is that close to where you were?
It's not close, about 20 to 30 miles away.
Okay. Still in the Pittsburgh area.
It's the greater Pittsburgh. It's outside of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And so I went there, and I went to a high school called North Huntington. Actually, freshman. I was 8th grade. I wasn't a freshman. I was in 8th grade. I went to North Huntington. That was no place, nothing there, nothing to do. My brother joined the Navy that period of time, and my mother worked, so I sort of go to school and go home and hang out because there's nothing there. The houses were being built by my uncles. They literally built thousands of homes in the Pittsburgh area after the war, and most of them were into the 50s. And so when I finished the school year, my mother decided to talk to my aunt and uncle, my Uncle Frank, my Aunt Rosine, to let me live with them. It was a little bit in more civilization. And I moved in with them, and I went to school in Wilmerdine, Pennsylvania.
And where's that in relation to where you were?
Well, from Swissvale, it's probably 15 miles away. It's not real far from Swissvale. So it was moved back towards Pittsburgh. And now you're back into the greater Pittsburgh area. The biggest town near where we live was McKeesport, Pennsylvania, and I think it's still a pretty good sized town. And so I lived with my aunt and uncle for a year. And I didn't really attend Wilmerdine High School for a whole lot. I would show up in the morning and leave.
And do what?
I go to pool rooms, shoot pool, do whatever I wanted to do.
Just not school.
Go back home and hang out because nobody's home, but I didn't go to school. And so Wilmerdine talked to my mother and said they didn't want me there anymore. And my mother then bought a house in East McKeesport, North Versailles Township, East McKeesport. And so I moved back with my mom and changed schools. East McKeesport was a school that was close.
Now, when did she get divorced from?
1951.
All right. And so what year is this that you moved to East
Irwin,
McKeesport?
I moved. We moved out there in 1951. Yeah, 1951. I moved to East McKeesport in 1953. So 52, I lived with my aunt.
And when did Grandma get remarried?
She got remarried in 54.
Okay.
I think something like November of 54.
All right. So we're back in 1953 then,
Yeah.
right?
So in 1953, I go to McKeesport, and I go in there. I think the school year had already started. I think I'd gone back to Wimbledon, and they said nah, because I just reverted to my go in one door and walk out the other door, and they said no, we're not going to do that. So I went to McKeesport, and I sort of promised my mom that I'd go to school, and so I went. I went every day, showed up to school, and finished the freshman year, and went back to. And this is now 1954. September school started. I go back.
Right.
I go back into start the 10th grade.
This is East McKeesport still.
This is East McKeesport High School.
All right.
And so now I'm getting close to a period where I can go and take my driver's test.
Okay.
And I did when I went to school. I did the stuff I liked to do. If I didn't like do it, I didn't do it. And I didn't like English, and I particularly didn't like the English class that I was in. So I didn't do a whole lot of work in English. I didn't cause any problems, but I sit down and keep my mouth shut and just didn't do any work. So in November, me and another guy went and took our driver's test. I got my license. We both got our license, and I came back. Sometime towards the end,
And when did you turn 16?
October 5th of 54.
All right. All right.
So at some time, I think it was late November. This is after my mother had gotten married. It was late November. The English teacher informed me, and I still had about 4 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that left in the semester, that I was going to fail, or that I had failed. And I said, well, let me make up the work. And she said, no, you're not going to let you make up the work. I said, no, I want to study all. She said, you have to talk to the principal about that. So I went to the principal's office. And
who is he?
Mr. Arnold. I remember his name.
You remember her name?
No. I could look it up.
That's okay.
You could look at the yearbooks.
Okay.
You have.
Yeah.
You can look. I think they have 56 yearbook. And
right.
The same English teacher was there. I never went back and looked at it. Anyway, I went there. Mr. Arnold told me, no, you're going to go back into English class. And I said, have you got a minute? He said, yeah. I said, give me a minute. I'll be right back. I went to my locker, got all my books. I come back, gave them to him, said I quit. And I left.
And so that was it for high school?
That was it for high school.
All right. And so this is November 1954.
Right. This is late November.
Okay. What did Grandma have to say about that?
She said, what are you going to do? And I said, I want to join the Army. I said, I want to join the Marine Corps because I wanted to join the Marine Corps.
Why the Marines?
I'd always wanted to join the Marine Corps. Like when I was a little kid, World War II was in full blast when I was old enough to talk and walk and stuff. And first song that I ever heard that I liked was the Marine Corps hymn. And I learned it when I was 3 years old. Anyway, I wanted to join the Marines. And I knew that I couldn't join at 17 unless my mother signed. I said, will you sign for me? And she said, yeah, if that's what you want, I'll sign for you.
So the rules back then in 54 or 55, you couldn't go in at 16.
No.
Regardless of who signed for you.
No.
Nobody could sign for you.
You couldn't join at 16.
If you were 17, a parent could sign for you.
A parent can sign. If your parents were married, both parents had to sign.
Okay.
If you had one, if you were, a single parent, then one parent could sign.
Okay. All right. And then when you're 18, you could join on your own.
You can join on your own.
Okay. And
I
so,
think the rules are still the same. I
all
don't
right.
think they've changed.
All right.
Uh,
But so she said she would sign for you at 17.
right.
But that's still a year away.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 16.
Yeah, I got to wait till October of 55.
All right. So what happened?
So I got my baptismal certificate, and I changed the date of birth on the baptismal certificate. And I did a good job because you really couldn't tell that I changed the 8 to a 7. And I went to the recruiting stations, which were in downtown Pittsburgh. So I went downtown Pittsburgh and I went to the Marine Corps. This is in early January.
55.
Of 55. This is after the New Year's and holidays had passed because you're, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and
Right.
And so I went down to Pittsburgh and I went to the Marine Corps recruiting office and, can we help you? I said, I want to join the Marine Corps. And I said, I want to go to Japan because I had some friends they'd been in the Army and they were stationed in Japan. And these were draftee guys. These were older guys. But, I said I knew them, so I wanted to go to Japan. And they said, you can't sign up here and request to go overseas because we have nothing going overseas. He said, but the Army is putting together an organization to go to Germany. He said, if you're interested in Germany, you can walk down to see, if they're interested in you. Okay, thank you. So I went down to the Army recruiters and said, hey, I want to join the Army, and I heard you have something going to Germany. They said, yeah, we have a whole unit's going to go to Germany in August. And I said, well, I want to go with the unit. I want to go with the unit. I want to go with them. So, well, how old are you? I'm 17. You have any proof of that? Yeah, I got my baptismal certificate. I don't know where my birth certificate is. I lost it. But here's my baptismal certificate. And they just took that as gospel and filled out the paperwork. And okay, your parents have to sign. My dad's dead. Okay, mom has to sign. Take these forms home and get them signed and bring them back. And we'll arrange a date for you to take the oath of a soldier.
All right. So just something you mentioned. So in between the time Grandma got divorced and in January of 55,
my dad died.
He passed away.
Right.
Okay.
My dad died in January 31st, 1952.
All right. And that's okay. Your brother, what was his name?
Anthony.
All right. And he joined the Navy in 52?
52. He was 17. He joined the Navy.
All right. How long did he stay in the Navy?
20 years.
All right. So both of you did 20 years in the service.
Right.
Okay. All right. So now we're back to January of 55. What did you do? So you signed up in January.
Right.
What happens next then?
Okay. So I go back. I get the paperwork signed by my mother. I take the paperwork back. I think the swear-in date was the 26th of January. I'm not absolutely sure of that one.
Right.
But go down, swear to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and then I got a date to depart from. I was going to Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic training. So the 29th of January was my official date as joining the Army. And I got on a train and went to Fort Knox, Kentucky. It was probably 50 of us, 50, 60 people they weren't all going they're all going to Fort Knox for basic training, but they weren't all going where I was going after basic training.
Was it just you, or did you have any friends that you hung out with going? Just you?
Just me.
All right.
Yeah. So we took the train and got to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and they signed us to a unit.
Now, between Pittsburgh and Fort Knox, you had told a story about stopping in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, we stopped before we got to Louisville, because Louisville was the last stop. That's Fort Knox is right outside of Louisville. And we got off, and Pittsburgh's integrated. You know, I went to school. The schools I went to integrated. I mean, we did stuff together. It was no big deal. And so we get off the train, and there's signs, you know, for whites only, for blacks only, and we said, "No, this, we're not going to do this," because we had a bunch of black guys, and we'd all come down the train, didn't sleep, just carried on all night, lied to each other, and
Right.
got to Louisville. Said, "No, we're not going to do this." And we got back on the train, finished our ride to Louisville, got on buses, took us to Fort Knox, got off the buses, were assigned to specific buildings. Again, all of us were going, you had to go through the process of getting indoctrinated or in processed into the military, which would be shots and issue uniforms and get measured for stuff. And
How long did that take?
That takes about 3 days, because you get briefings on what you can do and you're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to do. And
So where are you sleeping?
we're in the barracks. We're in a World War II old wooden barracks. And so we do the 3 days. You get our uniforms. We get everything that we need to, your basic issue of clothing, and we get assigned to our basic training unit. And I don't
Still
remember.
in Fort Knox.
Yeah. It's just Fort Knox is enormous.
So just different sleeping place. I mean, you're not
different. Yeah. Now we're going to go to where the company's at. There's going to be 4 barracks that are going to hold our company. 3 or 4. I think it was
Right.
4. 1 platoon in each barracks. And so we move there, and you meet your platoon sergeant.
Right.
And he's basically the guy that's going to guide you through his training.
All right. So I have a question. When on TV, you see this stuff with drill instructors, right? And they're screaming at the recruits. And I know you've seen the shows
Right.
on television. Is that what it was like back then?
No, we didn't have drill instructors. Drill instructors came much later, with guys with drill instructor caps, and
Right.
they actually get trained to train people. The people that were training us were guys who had served in a lot of them World War II and in Korea.
Right.
And these were combat old grizzly guys that were soldiers.
Right.
And they were going to train us in whatever disciplines that we were going to be trained in. And everybody who joins the Army, I think even still today, you go through basic infantry training.
Right.
And so you'll learn some basic infantry tactics, and you learn how to shoot your weapon, clean your weapon, maintain your gear. And you get physical fitness, a little bit of, bayonet drills and stuff like that, but nothing that makes you a qualified infantry guy who's got 5 years, 6 years experience, or another 4 months of training.
But it wasn't the same screaming and hollering and stuff you see on TV now.
They didn't. Yeah, I mean, you were told what to do, and if you didn't do it, you got punished. It was pretty simple. And when I went in the Army, if you didn't show up for a formation, it was a good possibility you were going to go to stockade. They have stockades, but nobody goes to the stockades anymore. You usually end up going to a jail or a prison.
Right.
But when I was in the Army, you went to a stockade, and the Army ran it, and they had guards at the stockades that you train night and day.
Oh, when you went to the stockade?
Yeah, you would get disciplined. And so that all went away. I think Patton said he'd rather have a guy out of the stockade than somebody graduating from the Ivy League.
Is that right?
Yeah, because they trained you more. I think that was his quote.
Right. Now, how long were you in basic?
Basic training at that time, and I think still today, is 2 months.
All right. So give us like the flavor of what the training was like.
Well, you get up early in the morning. It's so dark 30 at 4:30, 5 o'clock. You do PT. You got to clean up stuff. You have breakfast, and then you start training. You had to make sure, your bed had to be made the proper way. Everything had to be done. It was inspected. All your stuff was inspected every day. Um, your weapon was inspected. You had to clean your weapon.
Right.
In those days, you had wooden barracks, and our weapons were in rifle racks in the middle of the barracks. There's no locks on them. There's just your rifle was there right with you, so you had access to it. You always had access to it, and you had to clean it. Even if you didn't use it, you had to clean it.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, you mentioned two hills,
Yeah.
Agony and Misery. What are those?
So we marched everywhere we went. There was no trucks or buses or anything. Every place we went doing basic training, we marched. And when we go to the range, there were two hills in Fort Knox. They may still be driving basic training if they're still doing basic training at Fort Knox. Crazy. So it was Misery and Agony, and I can't remember which one. But on the way out to the range, you'd go down one and up the other. On the way back from the range, you'd go down the other and up the other. So it was always you were going to go uphill for some period of time. And that's when I learned that you could fall asleep marching.
It was when you were marching in basic.
When you marching in basic, because you could see guys just start drifting away from the formation, and guys would holler at them or reach out and grab them and bring them back. And I'm sure I did that once or twice when.
All right, so 2 months in
Fort Knox.
basic in Fort Knox. Then what?
Well, the normal cycle at that period of time was you got finished with basic training, you got 2 weeks leave to go home. Because I was going to a unit that was training, I didn't get that 2 week leave. I went straight from Fort Knox to Fort Meade, Maryland. Fort Meade, Maryland was where the regiment, the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, was organizing to get ready to go to Germany. So I got to Fort Meade and was immediately processed and sent to AP Hill, Virginia, where we were training.
And so you were going to be part of the 3rd Armored Cavalry.
Right. I was going to be in the 1st Battalion, Company C.
All right. And so tell us, I mean, what was that like? What was the training like? What did you do?
Okay, so well, you go to Fort Knox. I'm sorry, you go to Fort AP Hill, Virginia. It wasn't a fort at that time. I think it's now Fort AP Hill, Virginia. Anyway, you go to AP Hill, Virginia, and we lived in squad tents. And I think the squad tent, I think it holds 10 people. And we were going to live in squad tents for roughly 3.5 months, because that's how long we were going to train. And the mess hall was upstream from where we were billeted.
Right.
The latrines were downstream from where we were billeted. The mess hall's garbage was put into a sump that we dug.
So sump being just a giant hole.
Giant hole. And you dug the giant hole.
Giant hole meaning how big?
I know it's 6 feet deep. I think it was 6 by 6 by 6. It might have been a little bit bigger than that, depending on what the mess sergeant felt like when we were digging it.
Right.
But it was roughly that size. And then the other end of where we were bivouacked was latrines. And the latrines were, 8-holers, but there were, there was 4 on one side, 4 on the other side, and there were wooden toilets. There was a wooden box with
over a hole.
Over a hole.
And you dug the hole.
And you had to dig the hole.
How deep was that?
That was as big as the sump. Okay, and since we stayed there a long time, we dug a couple of sumps and a couple of latrines. Okay, so that was, and then we trained, and the cav, and we had scout each platoon had scouts, infantry, mortar, and tanks.
And what were you?
I was in a mortar. I was a gunner, actually. I was a gunner on the 81 millimeter mortar. And so the infantry was a squad of 9, was what an infantry squad was at that time. Scouts had 4 sections, and they were broken into 2 teams. One team was either the platoon leader or the platoon sergeant. One was a platoon leader, the other was a platoon sergeant.
Right.
And they had 4 guys that were with them. So one was a communication that would carry radios,
Right.
and the other one was protection, which had a 30 caliber machine gun was mounted on the Jeep. The infantry guys were in APCs because we were armored cav. We actually were in vehicles.
Right.
The tanks we had were M23s. And M23s had a 76 millimeter cannon. And the mortar we had was an 81 millimeter mortar.
So you were there April, May, June, and July, about
at about the middle of July
of 1955.
of 1955, because so the mortar guys went out and learned how to set up the mortars, aim the mortars, estimate distance, how to correct the estimated distance, how to set up the sights, balance the sights. Sights had they were like a level.
Right.
They had 2 different bubbles on them, and
Right.
before you fired it, you wanted both bubbles to be level. And they had aiming sticks where you would put out and sight off of the aiming stick, and then you would put the mortar in. It's 81 millimeter mortar. It's pretty good size.
Right.
It looks like a little bomb.
So how often during 4 months did you shoot that thing? Did you fire the mortar?
We probably did it 3 or 4 times. But we went out, and so you're also, basic training, you go out and fire your M1 rifle.
Right.
Okay, what weapon do you have when you are in one of these squads in the Armored Cavalry unit? And so I had an M1 carbine. So you go to the range and fire the M1 carbine. But they wanted, and then we had a 50 caliber machine gun mounted on our track. So we go to the range and fire 50 caliber machine guns. We go down and fire, so we'd fire our M1, our whatever weapon we had. And because different units had different weapons, we fired all of them.
Right.
Okay, so we go down as we're going to the range, we're going to fire our weapon, and then we're going to fire a grease gun, a 45 caliber pistol. You're going to fire everything. You're going to be trained on everything.
So you spent 4 months shooting all the weapons available.
Shooting the weapons, and we'd go, it wasn't a lot. Sometimes it wasn't a lot of shooting. So you go to the range, and for instance, we're going to go shoot 50 calibers at vehicles out in set up for us to go on the range and figure out how to shoot 50 calibers and sight them in. And the 50 caliber, I think every 5th round was a tracer, so you could follow the tracer where it was going and see where you were firing. So it would help you aim. You wouldn't have to get down and sight it. You could watch the tracer and figure out how to adjust the gun. But almost every time we did that, we'd fire the machine guns for about 15, 20 minutes, then we'd write fires for about 4 hours.
Well, you started fires.
We started fires. So we go every time we go down there.
So 15 minutes of shooting weapons, and then the rest of the time putting out fires.
Putting out fires so you wouldn't burn out APL, Virginia. And so then we'd have to go, you're going to go fire at aircraft.
Right.
Okay, so they would put a drone. In those days, it was automatic guys like a model airplane who could fly it.
Right.
And it would have a sleeve. It was a pretty good size aircraft. And they have a sleeve, a big red long sleeve. And the idea of and it was towing it, and it had a tow maybe 20 yards or so. A good distance from the plane was the sleeve. And everybody was instructed, shoot the sleeve, don't shoot the plane. Well, just like fires, You'd be out there about 20 minutes and some smart ass would shoot the plane down.
And that was it.
Well, you could get it back up, but it'd take hours. So, but you could actually watch the tracer going into the sleeve when you were
Right.
firing the weapon. And you'd have a bunch of guys lined up shooting 50 calibers at this drone that's flying by. And, somebody was going to shoot it down. That was
Right. Every time.
every time. And so you did, and then you had guard duty.
Right.
I mean, we had equipment, so you had all the things that you have in the military.
Right.
So you go out and then you're 2 on, 4 off, guard duty all night. I mean, see all the things that when you go out and you're in your unit.
Right.
You have the same job requirements, and there's duty rosters that tell you when you have your shift at
Right.
all those duties.
Right. All right. So what happens after advanced training, after July?
Okay, so go back to Fort Meade. Now we're preparing to go to Germany. Okay, so we're getting classes on German culture and stuff, and what we can expect from the German population and how we should act. And
Is this during advanced training or after advanced training?
this is between the time we finished the actual. I mean, you're still in training.
Right.
I mean, you're
Right.
training the whole time you're in the military.
Right.
Okay, but so we went. This is just indoctrinating us to where we were going to be and what we were going to be doing in Germany, where we were going, and those types of things. And so at this period of time, I was comfortable that my company commander knew how old I was. My first sergeant knew how old I was. I figured, I might as well go get all my paperwork because they're telling me, get your paperwork ready, get your paperwork straight.
Right.
So I said, I might as well go get my paperwork straight. And they said, well, you got to go to personnel. So I go down to the personnel office, and I'm sitting there waiting get called in by
Right.
one of the clerks to tell me what I had to do. And the full colonel comes in and says, there's a bunch of us sitting there. And he said, what are you guys here for? Well, he's talking to each one of us. And he said, what are you here for, soldier? And I said, well, got to get my ID card fixed. So what's wrong with your ID card? He said, well, the date of birth's wrong. I said, let me see that. He said, what's the date of birth? And I told him what it was. He said, come here. So you trying to get out of the Army? I said, no, I'm going to Germany. I'm not getting out of the Army. He said, well, you put the ID card in your pocket and get the hell out of here and don't say anything about it anymore. I said, yes, sir. And so I was gone.
So in August, you went to Germany?
So then I get a 14-day leave.
Okay.
So I go home, see my mom,
Right.
and spend 14 days in East McKeesport, and go back, and we get on I think it was Randall, USS Randall. We get on the Randall and we go by boat to Germany. I think it's a 10-day ride on the boat.
Did you get sick?
I didn't get sick.
No.
A lot of people got sick. I didn't get sick. We land at Bremerhaven, Germany. We get off the train. We get off the boat. We get in the train, and we drive to Bayreuth, Germany on the train. We get off the train in Bayreuth, Germany. We get in buses, and they drive us up a hill to Binlock. And we go through, it's a concern, and we go through the concern. There's fences and gates and everything
Right.
around it. We're going in, the 2nd Armored Cavalry Division or Regiment is going out. Now we're the 1st Battalion, and we're located in Binlock. And I don't remember where the other 3 battalions, other 2 battalions were located.
So you're the 3rd Armored Cav. You're going in, the 2nd's coming out.
Second, they're going
in.
home. They're going to go to get in that train, go back, probably get on the Randall and go home. We drove in, they closed the gates, and we never got, a liberty or time off, couldn't leave the concern to go do anything. We went right into training 7 days a week, maintenance in our vehicles, because now we have the stuff it's ours now.
Right.
And the mortar team, which I was on, we were given a half track.
Right.
That was our vehicle. And if you looked at the half track, it had a base plate in it. where you could actually set the mortar in to the half track itself.
Right.
Now, the 81 millimeter mortar you can do it without a vehicle,
Right.
and it has a base plate, a tube that you fire in it, and a bipod for mounting the sights and stuff. And so you can do that in the ground, or you can do it an mounted vehicle like we were that already had a base plate in the vehicle. And either heavy. The base plate's 50, 55 pounds, the tube's 45, 50 pounds, and the bipod's only maybe 20 or 30 pounds, but it's heavy. So you got three guys, and all your other gear that you got to carry.
Right.
If you're not in the vehicle, it's give you your workout for the day.
Now, Binlock, we spent a lot of time in Germany. It's in Bavaria.
Right.
And we looked at a map, it's due north of Augsburg.
Right. Right. It's not, it's all part of Bavaria. I mean, U.S. forces were other places, but there was a big chunk of us who were in Bavaria. It took Bavaria during World War II, and we stayed there. So we went in and we started a lot of maintenance on the vehicles, a lot of exercises where they blow the alert whistle, and we'd exercise getting how you're going to get. Somebody has to get the vehicle. Somebody has to get the weapons out of the arms room. Our vehicles were fully loaded with basic load of ammunition, live ammunition, and food, sea rations. So I always look at the canned food we get today, and all has expiration date.
Right.
I can't remember seeing the expiration date on the sea rations that I ate.
Is that right?
I think some were from 45 and it was 55 when I was eating.
Right. 10 years old.
Yeah. So I don't think they expired.
So you trained, you said you went in the caserne, they closed the gates.
And we trained.
And you trained until how long?
I think the first time we went, so the cavalry units, they patrol the border.
Right.
And there's actual moving patrols where the scout units do that.
Right.
And some of the infantry guys will rotate with the scouts because they don't take up their armored vehicles out.
Patrol what border?
East German border.
Okay.
East German and Czech border.
All right.
I mean, some of our guys would go to the Czech side too.
Right.
And then we had the moving patrols, and we had outposts in certain locations. There were fixed locations where we had
Right.
50 caliber machine gun mounted, and usually those were 4 or 5 guys, 6 guys. We'd go out there and spend 24 hours to get relieved. In 24 hours, we were awake and watching what the guys on the other side watch them.
So October of 55, that's when you turned 17.
I turned 17.
So you were out in the field when you turned 17.
They made me an acting corporal. Didn't promote people a lot in 55, but they made me an acting corporal, and I was a lead. I was a ranking person on our outpost. So
what did you do out there?
Look across the border, call in every hour or every half hour. I forget you would have to call at headquarters and tell them what was going on, what you saw, if you saw anything, and just make sure we knew what was going on across the border from us, if anything.
Is this where you kind of got familiar with German Shepherds?
Well, so the Border Patrol, the German Border Patrol guys, I think they all had German Shepherds.
Right.
And the guy who was in our sector would come up and hang out with us, and we got food. He'd share food with him, and he'd bring his dog. And his dog was friendly as long as he didn't give him the command to be unfriendly. He was friendly.
Right.
I think I've relayed this story before. And he said, anybody want to go hide and see if the dog can find you? And I said, I'll go do it. So I went down and got in a ravine and threw some leaves over me. And, he's about 15 minutes later, here comes a dog. He's got me, finds me, and he sits there. and he growls. And the guy said, "Don't move."
There wasn't much chance of you
Well, I
moving, was
wasn't
there?
moving, but and then he gave a command to the dog, and then the dog was fine, and his tail started wagging. He come over because I'd pet him before.
Right.
But if he'd have said, eat the guy, he'd have started chewing on me.
And so 50 years later, you got German Shepherds and trained them to Schutz in threes.
Yep, change them to do the same thing.
Well, that's kind of where it started, though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just something that interested me is the war ended in 45.
Right.
You got over there in 55.
Right.
And they still had displaced persons or refugee camps.
There was one right. Our OP was over here, and it wasn't 100 yards away. Was a displaced persons camp.
And I mean, this is 10 years down the road. Was it crowded? I mean, was there?
I never went in.
Right.
You never went into there were wooden houses.
Right.
And you could walk through it, but I never did that. I mean, people came out and we talked to them.
Right.
And, they were always friendly.
Yeah.
It wasn't, but we sort of, this is our stuff, don't come over.
Right.
But, they were there and they were okay as far as I can tell. I don't know where they came from. I never went over and asked anybody where you from.
Okay.
Could have been from East Germany.
Yeah. I think at the end of the 55, there was some sort of flood or something like that you had told me about.
So in 1956, and I'm pretty sure you can look this up on some weather history, it was really cold in Germany. I mean, we really had a cold winter. And I think it was in January. There was a little town over not far from the barracks, Binlock,
right,
that had a river running through it. And the river had frozen and was causing flooding. And they were concerned that the ice was getting thicker and the water was still coming down from wherever it was coming from. And they asked for volunteers to go down there and try to help the city break the ice up.
Right.
And I volunteered. I mean, go down, get out of the barracks. I'll go anywhere. And what we were doing, we would tie our with rope. Two or three guys would hold the rope in case the ice broke, and we'd go out there with a pick, and we'd be hammering away up the ice with picks, trying to crack it, break it up. And our battalion commander came down and he said, "Okay, I want everybody to get out of here." And he actually went out. Him and another guy went out, and they drilled some holes in the ice and they planted dynamite, and then come back out and they blew it, and it loosened broke up all the ice, and so the river started flowing downriver. And so our job was over, but it was 2-3 o'clock in the morning. We'd been there all night. We got the day off the next day, and people were happy. They were willing to give us wine and schnapps and all kinds of stuff. They were walking around being friendly.
That's so. And that takes us kind of to the end of 55 and beginning of 56.
Yeah,
right?
This is in 56.
The beginning of 56.
Yeah, and of course, in 56, we never stopped training.
Well, we're going to stop at 55.
Okay.
So, and we'll pick up 56 the next time.
Okay.